What's the most simple way to build a buy-to-let portfolio with a small limited budget? Now that's the subject of my property finance video this week. Sound interesting? Hey, stick around. Now it's not unusual for people to ask me questions. I mean, I've been brokering property finance for over 20 years. I've been training people on property finance and how to use finance intelligently for nearly 10 years. So people asking me questions is something that happens on a regular basis. In fact, I do a Monday morning live Q&A. Maybe you've seen it. So here's a question I got recently. Now this person had one property owned in a limited company, rented out on a single AST basis. Value was $124,000 with a $53,000 mortgage. So, nice tidy chunk of equity in it. What was unusual, it was on a repayment basis with just 12 years left to run. And the deal was up in about 3 months' time and free to remortgage without redemption penalty. So, decision time then, what to do. So, a great time to reassess what's going on and to actually make some decisions. Now I say unusually it was on a repayment mortgage because almost every buy-to-let mortgage is on an interest-only basis rather than repayment for one simple reason: monthly cash flow. Investors quite naturally want to make a positive monthly cash flow. That's the main reason they're investing in property, is to make themselves better off financially on a month-to-month basis. Now they're also planning for the longer future too, but primarily it's a positive cash flow situation. And the issue with a repayment mortgage is it's probably going to stick you into a negative cash flow. And having a negative cash flow on each property you own is going to severely limit your ability to build a portfolio. So interest only is the way to go. Now, if you're thinking, oh, but how am I ever going to pay a mortgage off if it's interest only? Well, you have to take a longer term view of that. Now, I've done a video that shows you the 3 easy ways over the longer period, and I'm talking 10 to 20 years, to pay down your buy-to-let mortgages. The thumbnail's up here, so just check out that video. So back to the guy with the question, and let's check out more of his situation as he told it to me. Now, didn't have a lot of spare cash. The rent pretty much covered the mortgage and not a lot extra. Now the good news is he wasn't paying tax because he wasn't making much profit. Rental-wise, fine. Tenants were good, paid on time, been there about 3 years, planned to stay there the long term. But even if they left, hey, it's a really strong rental area. So he's pretty confident he'd get another replacement tenant pretty quickly. So from that point of view, it looks well set. Now he's planning his next buy-to-let purchase. In fact, he selected a property and it was worth about 100 grand. But with no cash for a 25% deposit, how was he going to afford it? Now, confusion reigned in his mind anyway. What should he do? Switch his mortgage to interest only and put the new one on interest only too? Or just put the new mortgage on repayment? Or switch the current mortgage to interest only for 12 months, not borrow any extra, save up some cash and use that as a deposit before flipping it back to repayment? Probably longer than 12 months to build up a 25% deposit, I would say. Or his last option was forget all that, just go on holiday and keep one property. So confusion reigned what to do for the best. And that's where I come in. Taking the opportunity to reassess the mortgage without having to pay a redemption penalty is an opportune time to look at this. Now, switching it to interest only is going to drop the monthly payment down so that he makes more of a profit. Now that means he can increase his borrowing without increasing the monthly cost of his mortgage compared to what he's been paying on a repayment basis. He can keep the term at 12 years or extend that actually, because he's now got a bigger plan than he probably had when he bought that first property several years ago. Hey, have you subscribed yet? Click that subscribe button down there and that dingy belly thing so you don't miss any of my videos when they're released, which is every week. Great, thanks. I almost forgot, Instagram. Click that button too. Look, it's down there. Thanks. by refinancing his existing property to create a 25% deposit. Now that's creating the ability to buy that next property. In terms of the deposit, of course, and then using finance for the balance of the purchase price. And if he can make this work, he wants to do it another 4 or 5 times to give himself a nice little handful of properties. Clearly there was an inconsistency with his aim to end up with 4, 5, 6 buy-to-lets and his current trajectory of putting it on a repayment mortgage. Now, restructuring it the way that I just said would get him one more property because we could create a 25% deposit by refinancing. But if he just went into a ready-to-rent property, then he'd come to a dead stop because there's no way to create yet another 25% deposit if he's just buying a ready-to-rent property for 100 grand. So it needs a more fundamental rethink of how he buys property. And let's examine that in more detail. Because switching to interest only will give him a bit more cash flow in both his current and his next property, but it's not going to create future deposits to buy the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and however many. Now, taking that 124k, applying a 75% interest only buy-to-let mortgage would allow him to ramp it up to 93,000, which meant he pulls out 40,000 in equity. And that 40,000 can be reinvested in the second buy-to-let. He could wait until that 100k property increased to somewhere about 140 plus, just by market value increases, to create another 25% deposit that he could refinance and pull out to buy property 3. But hey, that's going to take some years. To get to the 4th, 5th and 6th properties by that passive way of working, 10, 20 years and no quicker. So how can he supercharge that time frame up and shrink it down to way less than 10 to 20 years? And the answer is by buying properties that you can forcibly increase the value over a short period of time, less than a year, which means buying properties with a problem, a degree of dilapidation, or something else that's restricting and reducing the value of them below their true market value, fixing it up over a period of weeks or months, and then refinancing it out onto a mortgage, which allows you to pull most of that cash out. In his case, most of that 40 grand back out. So now he's got 2 buy-to-let properties, but still that chunk of cash in the bank to buy property number 3. Repeat that process and that'll get him 4, 5, 6, or however many he ends up wanting to get. Now, the barrier to buying these dilapidated or problem properties, and with problems that you know how to fix, is that they're probably not going to be mortgageable because of the degree of dilapidation or the problem. So how do you buy it? Cash, obviously, because they're probably going to be one of these cash buyer only properties. But what if you're not Mr. or Mrs. Moneybags and you haven't got that much cash? Then what do you do? Now, if you've watched any of my videos, you probably know what's coming. Dilapidated properties with the ability to add exponential value, no big chunk of cash to buy it. Bridging finance is your friend. Why is that? Because they lend on any condition of property as long as you have a plausible plan to make it mortgageable again. And hey, with the right bridging loan, they'll even lend you the money to fix the problem, to fix the dilapidation and get it into tip-top order. This can be described in a couple of ways. I've been calling it recycle your cash for at least the last 10 years. It's also been described as buy, refurb, refinance. And I run one-day events at certain times throughout the year, don't do them all year round, called buy, refurb, refinance summits, where you can come and spend a day with me for a nominal cost and learn how to build a portfolio of properties on a relatively small budget to start with. Now, in the text below this video, I'm going to put a link to those BRR summits so you can check out when I'm running the next ones. And I run them in Leeds, London, Bristol and Birmingham at various times throughout the year. Check out the upcoming dates, and if there's one that's near you and a date that matches, hey, come and spend a day with me. Learn exactly how to really make buy, refurb, refinance work. Mastering this ability to buy a property, improve it, revalue it, pull your cash back out, I believe is one of the most important skills to learn in property. It's pretty impossible to build a portfolio of any appreciable size unless you're getting really good at pulling your cash out of each one that you buy. And that requires a lot more discipline in selecting the property to buy in the first place. So there we are, problem solving again this week, and I'll be back next week with another property finance video. Catch you then. If you enjoyed watching this video, did you know every Monday morning at 8:30 I do a live Facebook Q&A. So if you want to start the week with checking out some answers to your property finance questions, click the link here.